I've had two weekends of
Mr. Rich? Oh, Rich Evans? Mr. Evans, sorry.
whatever.
I don't know why I was thinking your last name. Richie Rich.
Off the garages?
We'd get more from it.
Did you?
Oh, we put the carport up for the blinds.
Yeah.
Well, that was carport. The dollars,
The
yeah,
garages.
to soften the whole thing. Yeah.
She's older than me. So for someone to say she's on
Well, in Western Australia, shocking, but we're not. Shocking.
So how big is your box up there?
Okay, we'll declare this meeting in October opened. Welcome to country. We wish to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people, the custodians of this land on which we are meeting here, and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to inform you that those in attendance at this meeting that the meeting is being webcast, and those in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements concerning any person, councillor or employee, and refrain from discussing those matters subject to closed council proceedings as indicated in clause 14.1 of the Code of Meeting Practice. I notice that all councillors are present, so there's no apologies. Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest? No declarations of interest. Confirmation of the minutes. Moved Councillor Ring, seconded Councillor Goodwin. All in favour? Unanimous. Commemorations and announcements. Any commemorations and announcements? Councillor Ring.
I attended the Rydal Gymkhana organised by the Rydal Show Society Youth Council, and I'd like to congratulate Grace Adley and her young team. It was an absolutely brilliant show that they put on, and they are a credit to this community.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor Statham.
Yes, Mayor Thompson, in the last couple of weeks we've experienced two very well-known local residents pass away unexpectedly. Mr Doug Burns and a very special friend of mine and some people in the gallery this afternoon, Carol Wooden from Portland. Carol was overseas on a once-in-a-lifetime trip with her husband Ray, who's a men's shed man, and she was a quilter, and she died very suddenly in Venice. So it's been a very big ordeal, and Portland is very saddened for her loss. Congratulations to the following organisations and council for the successful events openings in the last 3 weeks. Sharon Howard at Gang Gang Gallery hosted the inaugural Zigzag Art Prize, with Shane Monaghan being the very popular winner. The Portland Columball and Red Cross morning tea was an outstanding success. The Lithgow City Band and Pipe Band have played quite a few times during our wonderful celebrations over the last 3 weeks. Quota Craft exhibition, the KBD Drought funding luncheon was wonderful. NAIDOC Day, KBD Markets and the train trip was an outstanding success. Celebrate Portland. The numbers were down a little bit this year, but the small committee did their very best in lieu of the fact that they had a lot of competition. Gone Fishing was an amazing success. Back to Hartley. Halloween, of course, to the council, all the people on board with the council. An outstanding Halloween this year. Yesterday afternoon also we had Back to Hartley and NAIDOC Day this week, of course, and the community cinema yesterday afternoon showed some amazing films about Halloween and the history of the Halloween series of films. And last but not least, and one of the most important, the Hoskin family from Sydney and all around New South Wales were in Lithgow yesterday afternoon, and I was kindly invited to their lunch and their service. This family has put in an enormous amount of money into Lithgow, and I think we need to be very grateful that we still retain the Hoskins family, providing a lot of interest in our Lithgow local government area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Statham. Councillor Coleman.
I too would like to acknowledge all the events that Councillor Statham has mentioned. I was at many of them as well as you were, Mayor, and I think all credit goes to those who organised them, and especially the volunteers who put so much time and effort into those events. But I'd also like to do a big shout out to all the young people at the moment who are currently going through their HSC, studying and sitting their HSC exam, and my thoughts are with them at this time.
Councillor Coleman. Any other announcements? Just personally, I'd like to congratulate our council staff for the effort that they've put in over the last fortnight with the 150-year trains out at Bonefells. That's the station I was looking for. I've got S-Bank on the mind at the moment. Yeah, Bonefells, and also NAIDOC Day down at Walgan Valley, which was also great. But our staff and our tourism centre out there has put on an absolutely wonderful weekend. I agree that Halloween was one of our best ever, and it's just getting bigger and bigger, and the amount of visitors that it's bringing to the town is absolutely amazing. Thank you. If there's no others, we'll move to public forum. If there's anybody, we haven't anybody registered to speak at public forum tonight, but if there's anybody in the public forum that would like to speak on an item on the agenda, please step forward, mention your name and your residence. Thank you. Mr. Rufus.
Good evening, Ian Rufus, QA S-Bank Lithgow. I'm speaking here about an item on the agenda for Curate Place. This proposal's 4 small houses on their own block as originally lodged. They've been amended slightly due to council's concern with engineering and design issues, and the issues of steepness and services have been addressed. MCORD, mentioned in the report, was published in 1992. The current subdivision, I believe, was approved when the hospital was demolished. Styles of living have changed. Some people appreciate smaller houses on smaller lots in well-located, mixed development areas, quite similar to most of early Lithgow, which these areas are. proposal simply shaves a small area of steep banks back to allow an easier grade movement. The adjacent houses have little yard area and much larger lots. No objections from neighbours were received to our proposal. The issue of appearance from Kira Place has been detailed in 3D diagrams, as you can see. And Mr Mayor, with your permission, if we can hand out a large copy of those to all councillors.
I think they hand it to the administration and then we'll distribute to councils afterwards. Look, I've just been advised if you hand them to the administration and we'll hand them out to councillors afterwards. Thank you. If you'd like them to present them up to the General Manager.
To the General Manager. Oh, keep two for us. The General Manager, Graham Faulkner. Oh, no, Andrew.
We just need to make sure that there was nothing that was being presented that hadn't been assessed by council officers. That was all, but it's already in the paper. That's fine.
No, not a problem, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Moved Councillor Goodwin, seconded Councillor Goodsall. If all in favour? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Those diagrams detail the appearance from Kira Close. Thank you. They detail the appearance from Kira Close. In tonight's meeting, there's another proposal for a small house, which is recommended for approval.
I've just been advised that you can't talk about something else that's not relevant. So if you would stick to your own item, thank you.
I'll withdraw that. In summary, we consider our proposal is allowable, is consistent in size, scale and height with most of the housing in the area. The lot shapes allow open space consistent with modern living in an urban area, a built-up area, and the overall design provides superior solar access as well as views and desirable appearance to the street. The owner would greatly appreciate an approval subject to usual development conditions for subdivision and housing tonight, if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rufus. Anybody else that wants to speak to public forum?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Cy Townsend from 78 Glenrock Place at Hartley. I'd just like to make a few points with regard to the calling in of agenda item number 11.2.5, a proposed garage at 76 Glenrock Place. Myself and my wife are the closest residents to this property here. We were visited by the owners, Mr and Mrs Field, with regard to some complaints about the proposed DA for the garage they wish to build. If my understanding is correct, the main objections are coming from a resident that is not even a neighbour, not even a direct neighbour, who does not share a boundary. In fact, the resident, if my information is correct, the the resident is no closer than about 80 metres to the corner of Mr and Mrs Field's property. There were some issues around the colour. The colour that Mr and Mrs Fields nominated to start with. There's two colours in Hartley that are quite common in Colorbond sheds. One is woodland grey, and the other colour is a creamy colour, which is a similar colour to what Mr and Mrs Fields have proposed to build their shed. And if you turn off the Great Western Highway at Hartley School onto Mid Hartley Road, there's no less than about 6 or 7 other buildings between the Hartley School and my place, which, as I said earlier, Mr and Mrs Fields' house is right next, or their property is right next to, are all the same colour as what they wish to build. One of them being the community hall at the Hartley School. The other is a dual occupancy dwelling on the property of these people that are objecting to the colour. My understanding is that their view would be obstructed by the size of the shed. In 2015 we had quite substantial rains. A lot of trees became unstable, and Mr and Mrs Fields cleared some trees which they thought were a hazard along their boundary line, which created a problem for these people. If these people are the ones that are complaining, these trees were 12 metres high, and they had no view to start with. Subsequent to that, Mr and Mrs Fields have planted anything up to 45 pencil pine trees along that boundary now. So in 5...
Move Councillor McAndrews, seconded Councillor Smith. All in favour?
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr Townsend.
So in a period of about 5 years' time, this shed won't be able to be seen by these neighbours anyhow. The property between Mr and Mrs Fields' house, their property where the shed will be, and also where the people are making objections, is surrounded by pencil pines already, with the one gap being in line where Mr Fields wishes to build his house. They've approached everybody in the cul-de-sac down there at Glenrock Place. Nobody has an objection to it. I find it a bit unfair that somebody that is in Granger Place and not Glenrock Place could hold up this development. And yeah, that's about all I've got to say.
Thanks, Mr Townsend. Anybody else like to speak? Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Denise Shower. I live at 52 Granger Place in Hartley. I'm one of the neighbours to Mr Field. I didn't realise this was coming to council today. Look, we don't have an issue with Mr Field having a shed.
Look, just to make it clear, this isn't for a decision tonight at council. This is just this. The development application has been called in by council.
Okay, Mr Townsend's put forward his, so I thought I'd step up and say my bit too, if that's okay. Yep. Okay. Thank you. As I said, we don't have an issue with the colour of the shed. We have an issue with the size of the shed. It's 24 metres long, 12 metres wide, and 6 metres. More than 6 metres high, and it's straight across our boundary. We look out of our house from every living area and upstairs and our backyard, and we look onto this shed right on our boundary. So we are one of the people who are concerned about it. We have asked Mr Field if he might turn it round, move it down a little so that it doesn't take up too much more of his land, or we're not suggesting he put it down the back where the land drops away. We're asking him to be considerate, to turn it round maybe and move it a little so that it's not straight across our boundary with the 6 metres, 6.1 metres overlooking us. Mr Townsend's correct. He has planted a lot of, I think they're Leighton Green pines along that boundary, but they will be on the southern side of this 6 metre high shed, and in years to come I see that they might be a problem in growing because they're on the southern side. So we just wanted to put forward our concerns about the size of the shed, not the colour, not the fact that he wants a shed, but the position of it and the size of it. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak at public forum? Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, councillors and council staff and members of the public. Robert Hoolison, 26 High Street, Portland. Just here to talk about the Portland Men's Shed and the application to use the Mick Moore Pavilion at Kramer Park. Men's sheds are not just fixing furniture and building toys, they are helping men and building communities. In 2005 there was an estimated 200 men's sheds operating in Australia, and today the Australian Men's Shed Association has a membership base of over 985 men's sheds and representing 150,000 members. A major achievement for the association was formal recognition by the federal government of the role that men's sheds play in addressing social isolation, health and well-being. Its inclusion in the National Male Health Policy was launched in 2010, which led to funding through the Federal Department of Health, with a major proportion of this funding quarantined specifically for direct financial assistance to men's sheds. The Australian Men's Sheds Association commenced almost 13 years ago in 2007. The Australian Men's Shed Association is funded by the Federal Department of Health to provide practical support to men's sheds and deliver a wide range of services. Its aim is to improve the health and well-being of members and reduce the number of men who are at risk from preventable health issues that may emanate from isolation. Through collaboration and strategic partnerships with national, state, territory and health-related community services such as Beyond Blue, the Heart Foundation, Department of Veterans Affairs, Cancer Council, Australia's Men's Shed Association has developed a range of resources and delivered a variety of national initiatives such as the Spanner in the Works Men's Health Project. Some of the objectives of the association are to provide usable men's shed-specific health and safety and risk management systems plus training support, act as a collective body to source commercial sponsorships and secure government commitment for the ongoing support of men's sheds, promote men's health programs within men's sheds, encourage social inclusion by assisting communities to develop men's sheds and foster their self-sustaining capacity, highlight the need for meaningful activities to be available for males within their communities, identify and nurture innovative ideas and activities into men's sheds environment, and promote and develop activities for men within communities. What's special about the men's shed? Loneliness and isolation are a major contributor to men's mental health. The same loneliness and isolation also contributes to major health issues, including suicide. Country and rural areas have a higher incidence due to their increasing isolation, which can create a dependence.
Moved Councillor Statham, seconded Councillor Smith. Those in favour? Go ahead, thank you.
Which creates a dependence on alcohol and drug use. This, along with other factors, is a contributing factor in domestic violence and violence in society. Most men have learnt from our culture that they don't talk about feelings and emotions. Many do not take interest in their own health and well-being. Unlike women, most men are reluctant to talk about their emotions, and that means they don't usually ask for help. As a result, many men are less healthy than women, drink more, take more risks and suffer more from isolation, loneliness and depression. Relationship breakdown, retrenchment, early retirement, loss of children following divorce, physical or mental illness are just some of the problems that men find difficult to deal with on their own. Good health is based on many factors, including feeling good about yourself, being productive and contributing to your community, connecting with friends and maintaining an active body and mind. So becoming a member of a men's shed provides a safe and busy environment where men can find many of these things in an atmosphere of old-fashioned mateship, and importantly, there is no pressure. Men can just come along, have a yarn and a cuppa if that's all they're looking for. Members come from all walks of life. The bond that unites them is that they are men with time on their hands, and would like something meaningful to do with that time within the spirit of mateship and community. The Men's Shed movement has now become one of the most powerful tools in addressing health and well-being and helping men to once again become valued and productive members of our community. At the Portland Men's Shed, we commenced approximately 10 years ago. We've assisted the Portland Art Show with hanging of art entries displayed, assisting members of the local community by maintaining their lawns and gardens when they've been able to do so themselves, including assisting the Portland Scouts with the clean-up of their premises. Restored furniture, etc. for community members for small donations. We've already contributed approximately $39,000 to maintain the Mick Pavilion on behalf of the Lithgow City Council and the Portland community by maintaining its structural integrity, without which this building may have recently collapsed in the high winds. The money has come from grants, fundraising, man-hours by Men's Shed members and community service supervised work. We have stabilised the south wall, replaced the roof, undertaken remedial drainage work to stop water egress that had already caused rot to structural timbers, as well as painting of the exterior. In conjunction with Lithgow City Council, we have applied for community grant funding to restore the wider Kramer Park complex. What we would appreciate and respectfully request is that we recognise that Lithgow City Council administers Kramer Park on behalf of the New South Wales Department of Primary Industries, and request that Lithgow City Council support the proposed use of the Mick Pavilion at Kramer Park by the Portland Men's Shed. The plan of management supports the leasing or licensing of the Mick Pavilion and adjacent lands.
Look, I know you're just about finished, so that's fine. Go ahead.
For car parking, entertainment and recreation. That Lithgow City Council, on behalf of Portland Men's Shed, seek approval from the New South Wales Department of Primary Industries for a lease of the Mick Pavilion and adjacent lands for the maximum term allowable. Ultimately, this will assist maintain a building of historical significance and provide Portland community with a vital asset. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Wilson. Anybody else in public forum wish to speak? Thank you. Move on to item 8, Merrill Minute. Commentary, Councillors Darryl Goodwin, Cassandra Coleman, with Mayor Ray Thompson, Deputy Mayor Steve Ring, staff Graham Faulkner and Michael McGrath, attended the conference at New South Wales Conference in Sydney during the week of the 14th of October. The conference is a policy-setting vehicle for the local government in New South Wales, and Lithgow Council voted on 120 motions debated at the conference. With the assistance of the local member, the Honourable Paul Toole, meetings were pre-arranged at Parliament House with the Honourable Damien Tudhope, Minister for Small Business, the Honourable Jeff Lee, Minister for Skills and Tertiary Education, the Honourable Matt Keane, Minister for Energy and Resources, and the Senior Policy Advisor from Minister Hazzard's Office, Minister for Health. The Mayor and Deputy Mayor also met with the Honourable Paul Toole, also with the General Manager, with the Honourable Paul Toole in his capacity as Minister for Regional Transport and Roads. Issues discussed with ministers: decline in retail in regional New South Wales, government policy concerning small business in regional New South Wales, Great Western Highway, Penrith to Lithgow, New South Wales road grants, TAFE services in Lithgow, skills development as part of Lithgow's transition strategy, health services, paediatricians in Lithgow, mental health services, tourism investment, Wallerawang repurposing, job creation and retention in the Lithgow LGA. There's a recommendation here on the bottom of page 7. Any discussion on the Merrill Minute?
Mayor Thompson, if I may, I'd like to add an additional 2 points. An item 4, that is, that formal invitations to visit Lithgow are forwarded through the Honourable Paul Toole to the following ministers: the Honourable Brad Hazzard, Minister for Health, to meet with key stakeholders to discuss the lack of adequate paediatrics services in our local government area and what support can be provided to our most vulnerable community members. The Honourable Damien Tudhope, Minister for Finance and Small Business, to meet with key stakeholders to discuss the changing face of retail and challenges to small business. Point 5, that the administration prepare a report for review by councillors at the November meeting that identifies potential lands that could be transferred to National Parks and Wildlife Service, and that any endorsed recommendations are forwarded to the Minister for Energy and Environment, the Honourable Matt Keane.
Yeah, look, I haven't got a problem with either of those points, with any of those points, so I'm quite happy to accept those into the Merrill Minute.
If I may, Mayor Thompson, the first point, number 4, I think that's self-explanatory. I think it's really important that we do get up the Minister for Health or his senior policy advisor to talk about the problem of lack of adequate paediatric services. As for the second point, item 5, the council received a letter from Matt Keane, and we spoke about this down there, where he's written to all councils about increasing the size of National Parks estate by around 200,000 hectares, and he is asking councils across the state if they have any suggestions on lands. It's an opportunity for us to look at Crown lands or reserves that we manage, Hyde Park, Hassans Walls, and maybe shift some costs back to the government. What other reserves? I mean, there may be other reserves out there too that come to mind, but it's an opportunity for us to return the favour.
Any other commentary on the Merrill Minute?
Yes, Mayor, I have some questions. I note you read the dot points out, the job creation, retention, Lithgow, LGA. Did you get a chance to talk to any of the ministers regarding Newlands Forest future with the impact of the proposed pagodas, destination pagodas? That's the first question I've got.
Look, it did come up in discussion. It certainly was raised about the forestry in the destination pagoda. I've got to say that Minister Keane and Minister Tudor have already given assurances that they are going to visit the district.
Okay. The other question, and sort of as a matter arising, I suppose, I was aware that yourself and Councillor Smith met with the Federal Minister, Matt Canavan, recently regarding very similar items to those that are highlighted in page 6 of 63. I'm just wondering whether we could get a brief report from yourself and Councillor Smith on that conversation, which occurred, I think, a couple of weeks ago now.
Yeah, look, we did have a meeting with Minister Canavan, who's the federal minister, of course. Councillor Smith was invited into that meeting out at Angus Place. I'm sorry, and look, he made it very, very clear, the same as Minister Keane did, that they would support coal in the district until 1942, when the closure of Mount Piper is imminent. So they made that very, very clear at that particular meeting. 2042, I think. Not 2042. I'm sorry. Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lithgow's only 140 kilometres from Parliament House, and surely meetings like this with the ministers, and I accept that they're important, don't get me wrong on this, but they can be arranged any time. You can actually arrange to go and meet ministers, and I'm sure Mr. Toole would be very happy to do such. But if you're elected to attend a local government conference in Sydney, then I think it's probably a good idea to actually go to the conference, because many items of importance to Lithgow are debated there. And I refer to 2 items. One is that the fact that Councillor Coleman, I'm perfectly aware, moved an amendment to motions about the museums, and specifically referred to the Lithgow Small Arms Factory Museum, and how the local government could help Lithgow in preserving the integrity of our museums. And also, of course, financial assistance grants was raised, and I remember a previous conference where the vote, an important vote for Lithgow Council, was carried by 2 votes. So the presence of councillors actually at the conference and voting is important, and it's it's something that I really should emphasise as being something that we need to do, and perhaps the visits for ministers could be arranged at a time other than at a conference time.
Very good, Councillor Leslie. Look, I remember vividly going to a conference in Canberra when you was Mayor, Councillor Leslie, and both days in Canberra you was at Parliament House. I don't think you got to one session at that particular conference. So that's just a little comment there. Look,
Canberra is, of course, a lot further away than Sydney.
Oh. In this day and age, Canberra can be very, very close, Councillor Leslie. Look, if there's no more discussion, I'll put the Merrill minute. Oh, sorry, Councillor Smith.
I'd just like to say that, as you stated, Mayor, that I was invited to that meeting with Mr Canavan, and our federal member, Andrew G, was there, and he's very supportive of the coal industry, and not just the coal industry, to get the price of power down. That's what the whole talks and the emphasis was, to Centennial, to get Angus Place reopened. We know what it's all about. It's about getting coal to Mount Piper Power Station, and both these politicians were very supportive of our area, and Mr Canavan said in no uncertain terms, we need baseload power. There's no other way to put it. He spoke about the cost of power, the people of Australia are struggling, and we're struggling terrible in New South Wales. I was very impressed with Mr Canavan and Mr G. They were both very forthcoming and backed our LGA to the max.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Okay, so I so move the Merrill minute. Those in favour? Those against? Councillor Leslie against. Thank you. We move to 9.1. Notice of motion, Councillor Statham, lease agreement, Portland Men's Shed. Councillor Statham.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. This has been a rather difficult journey over the last week. The Portland Men's Shed invited me in to have a sit-down, lengthy meeting to try and have security put before them to do with the old bathhouse and now the Mick Mob. I realise that the plan of management has not been completed. However, we feel that with the work involved, they've already spent...
Just one moment, Councillor Statham. Can I get a second, please?
Yep,
Mayor, thank you.
I'm happy to second for the purpose of the debate, but I would like to foreshadow a motion or amendments that may arise.
Well, I would like to make an amendment to this, but first of all, I would like to take a point 4, paragraph 4. It is not relevant at this moment in time. There's more information came forward. I guess the bottom line in, no doubt the councillors have read the information from the men's shed that has been provided to me. They have spent over $40,000, as it has been suggested in the public gallery, and they have done a lot of work, including $30,000 approximately drainage that Lithgow Council would have been able to be, I guess, have done that. They have had volunteers come in to do that. So at the end of the day, there's a group of great men out there that would like to see security into the next few years, and they have asked me to try and sort through the red tape and whatever else is needed, and I believe that the only way forward at this stage in time is to, because the plan of management hasn't been completed, is to simply please delegate paragraph 4. This is now not relevant, and add another 2 points, thank you. Realising the Creamer Park plan of management is yet to come, even though the Portland Shed has been given the go-ahead for the new location, I would like to propose the General Manager write to Adam Marshall, Minister for Crown Lands and Primary Industries, to request the lease arrangements preferred by the men's shed after many discussions. The General Manager also write to the Minister for Rural Roads and Transport, Minister Paul Toole, to request that he lobby and also support Minister Marshall with a decision for a 100-year lease for the men's shed. The men's shed have put in an enormous amount of work, enormous amount of time. It's still going to be some time before they're allowed to move into that building. In that meantime, they feel like that they're going to be spending quite a lot of money and doing quite a lot of work, and they feel that it is time to have more than a 1-year lease. A 1-year lease they feel is insecure, And I believe from the people that I've been speaking to that they'd be absolutely delighted if the General Manager could see fit to contact Adam Marshall and Paul Toole to suggest that these men are creditable, they've got history on the board, they're going to maintain a building that was almost ready to be demolished. And I think that the parking agreement and the small amount of landscape they wish to do is going to enhance a terribly untidy little section of Kramer Park. And I do believe that the money that they are paying, $449, which includes GST, surely to goodness they don't have to pay that until they start to move into that shed. I think they paid that in August, or it's to be paid in August, and the likelihood of them moving into the shed this year is rather difficult, but they have decided that they would like some security and would like council to support that in way of the General Manager please writing to the appropriate people.
Can I just have a clarification? Is Councillor Statham proposing a different recommendation than that which is in front of us?
Yes, the way that I understand
I've
it.
added 2 dot points.
She's added 2 dot points and dropped 1 dot point.
Can we get it up there?
Yes.
I'm confused.
Councillor Statham, could you just check the screen to see if the dot points are forward with your amendment?
I'm not talking about management comments, I'm talking about the recommendation in front of councillors that will be needed to be voted on tonight.
Absolutely. Well, my recommendations that needed desperately to be added to that notice of motion to make sense was simply delete point 4, it's about over, it's not significant.
No points in the recommendation, it's simply a recommendation. I need to understand what I'll be required to debate on and vote on.
Yeah, look, I fully concur with you, Councillor Coleman. Are you talking about, well, I understood you was talking about point 4 in the manager's comments. Is that the one you're speaking about?
Just very simply realising that Kramer Park management is yet to be done, even though the Portland shed has been given the go-ahead for their new location. I would like to propose the General Manager write to Adam Marshall, Minister of Crown Lands and Prime Ministers, to request lease arrangements preferred by the next shed. And the next stop point was the General Manager write to the Minister of the Rural Roads and Transport, Paul Toole, to request he lobby to Adam Marshall.
Fair enough.
And suggest
I understand it now. I just got a little bit lost when you was talking about taking a paragraph out, that was all. Councillor.
Mayor Thompson, look, I'm going to talk against the amendments. I do have amendments that will achieve an outcome out there. I was approached also by the men's shed a couple of weeks ago to go to the meeting that they were having to discuss the leasing, but we were in Sydney.
Just one moment, he's speaking as a seconder to the motion, or are you putting...
I'm a seconder of the motion. I have foreshadowed that
Yes.
I'll be bringing motions,
Yep,
but I am talking against the amendments, which I'm entitled to do.
yes, fair enough.
In essence, the minister can only issue 99-year leases. The Act has been changed last July. We have until 2021 to prepare plans of management. The minister is highly unlikely to...
Just a point of order there, Councillor Ring. You seconded the motion. I don't think you can speak against the motion if you've seconded the motion and then come back to your foreshadowed amendment, okay?
Okay, well,
Yeah.
okay, then
Yeah.
I'll...
Yeah, yeah. Withdrawing a second. Can I have a seconder now for Councillor Statham? Thank you.
I will second it for the purpose of debate because I actually want to understand what Councillor Ring is saying.
Yep, okay, thank you. Right, do you want to speak to that, Councillor Coleman?
No, I'll reserve my right.
Well, there's no right if you're the seconder. Now, Councillor Ring, you can speak against it.
I also was approached by the men's shed the week before we went to Sydney for the conference, and they advised me they were having a meeting the following Tuesday when we were in Sydney to discuss their concerns over leasing arrangements with Mickmore Pavilion. I discussed their concerns, I discussed them with Mr Muir, I got back to them and said, once we're back from Sydney, I'll come out and talk to them. I was later advised there was a NOM came in. I organised for the General Manager and myself to visit the men's shed Tuesday of last week. We got to the bottom of it, and what the upshot is that we have to prepare plans and management for every Crown land that we are the trustees for. We have until 2021. That is legislation that was enacted July 2018. They are not going to make an exception and open the floodgates for one group. As much as I respect the men's shed, the politicians are not going to go down that path. We need to get the plan of management written. There are avenues that will allow them to be given security, but it has to be done with due process, and that is through the plan of management process. We can amend, hopefully, and I've discussed this with Mr Muir, and I'll put this in the amendments depending on what happens. We can look at amending the existing lease agreement for their existing facility and extend that to the Mick Moore Pavilion. There are opportunities that will give them security. I think at the end of the day, this entire council supports every men's shed in this community. But we have to follow due process. If we don't, it will come back to bite us in the backside. And then we also need to look at how we're treating other men's sheds and their leases. We need to have consistency across the board. So it's not a simple matter. I think we need to look at it in the bigger picture, but we need to give them assurance tonight that we will back them and their proposals and the work that they are doing.
Thanks, Councillor Ring. Councillor McAndrew.
Look, Councillor Ring raises an important point. The question I had, just for clarity and a bit of a clearer understanding in relation to consistency and what is happening out there, with our Wallerawang and Lithgow men's shed, what are those lease terms? Can I get a bit of a background of what those lease terms are? That's the first question I've got, then I've got a number of comments.
Mr Muir.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Lithgow men's shed is a direct lease with the Crown, which was entered into in 2013, but it has actually expired and is now on an ongoing month-to-month basis, so that is continuing at this stage. And that lease fee is approximately $550 per annum.
Yep.
Wallerawang is actually a bit different because it's owned by council, it's not Crown land, it's not complicated by that. We entered into a 5-year arrangement with the Wallerawang men's shed in 2017, $470 per annum. The only changes in those amounts relate to what they were at that time when they were entered into and CPI.
Okay, so they're both. I'm not against the trust of the motion being put. There's something that we're unable to be like is that any thought of any long occur until the preparation of that there's a lot of work effectively we can support the recommendation. One has an effectively changed. Support the men's shed request. Well, we can't even look at the 99-year lease. Of the men's shed, I think the one point of recommendation is that there's got to be a plan of management. With support from men's shed, speaking to whoever we need. any form of long-term lease until a plan of management up with, and then move through working, as I said, with the
I've got a foreshadowed amendment already, so you're foreshadowing another amendment?
I'm not foreshadowing, I'm moving an amendment. I'm
Yeah.
not foreshadowing anything. I'm moving an amendment.
Right.
Point of order. There can only be one amendment at a time. I foreshadowed an amendment.
But you foreshadowed an amendment. He's moving an amendment.
I'm moving an amendment. There's a difference between the two, and a foreshadowed motion or amendment lapses.
Lapses until such time.
Until if the first motion or amendment gets up.
You are
and
certainly
I'm moving an amendment. I hope I've got.
Councillor McAndrew's amendment.
Yep. Councillor McAndrew. Who's seconded? Councillor Leslie. So the amendment is?
Well, the first dot point is, I've got to think this through now. The first dot point is that whoever does it, that we move forward to get a plan of management.
I'll have to get advice from council staff here.
In relation to plan of management, I suppose the changes to the Crown's Land Act, which came to pass the provisions in 2018, which has puts us in this predicament regarding plans of management, comes back to the whole concept of cost and responsibility shifting. Now, there's a cost in preparing plans of management. And this amendment only was enacted in July 2018, whether we can move to do more than one plan of management for the Crown lands managed by council, whether we'll have the resources to do those in-house, or whether we'll have to have funds to appoint consultants, are things which we would have to consider in any way which we move forward.
Mr General Manager.
Mr Mayor, perhaps I might have a form of words here that might just help Councillor McAndrew to get where he wants to go. So point one would be, in developing the plan of management, favourably consider, could you bring the resolution down please, Trinity, the amendment? No, the previous amendment. Okay, so looking at the amendment that Councillor Statham put forward, amending it in accordance with Councillor McAndrew's wish, one would become, in developing the plan of management, favourably consider Portland Men's Shed request for a 99-year lease, permission to landscape a small area of underutilised land, etc., a payment of $549 not be introduced. So that again, it's in developing the plan of management, council favourably consider. So it's built into the plan of management. Two would be right to Adam Marshall conveying a council's intention in relation to this matter, seeking support. And three would be similar writing to the Honourable Paul Toole to lobby in support of council's intention for this matter.
Caution on the issue I raised about consistency between all of the men's sheds. If I understood what was asked tonight was for a long-term lease. I don't think the 99 years was raised in the presentation tonight. It was simply requesting a long-term lease. Maximum long-term lease, okay. I just urge caution with that. I think we need to have the plan of management in place, and what goes from that is then we have those discussions what an appropriate lease should be in relation to the plan of management and looking after the interests of Portland Men's Shed, as I've said, and the interests of council. That's what I prefer. That's what I'm moving as an amendment.
Mr Leslie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, council cannot possibly have a motion that has a term of 99 years. We can't commit council to 2118. Who knows what's going to happen? I mean, sure, bowling clubs don't get them this long. No one gets them this long. Only Hong Kong got it that long. And even that sort of fell apart. So you just can't do a 99-year lease. And so before any time frame on it, you have to determine just exactly what the plan of management is, what sort of area is going to be used, and all the other details that come into a plan of management. So I'll be voting, and I like the idea of a men's shed. I'll be joining one very soon. I think it's a great idea. I'm that age. I take that point, and it'll be filling my empty hours. I appreciate that as well. But a 99-year lease is just not on at this stage. And so let's get a plan of management right, and then we come back and we talk to the men's shed, we talk to the other, to the Lithgow and Wallerawang, we find out what's happening, we get sensible advice from our staff, and also, if necessary, from solicitors and legal advice. We take it seriously and we take it carefully, and we proceed with caution, because we're dealing with important issues here, and we're dealing with land. Who knows how Kramer Park might be developed in even 15 years' time? We don't know, and we can't sort of possibly tie future councils for the next century in ways we have just no understanding of. So I congratulate Councillor McAndrew on his amendment, and any motion that puts 99-year lease or extended lengths of time like that I'll be voting against.
Thanks, Councillor. Just before you speak, Councillor Ring, is Councillor McAndrew and Leslie happy with the wording that's on the screen? Councillor Ring.
Look, in essence, that's getting to the thrust of what I was going to move. But as respect to the 99-year lease, it would never be council that would issue it. 99-year lease can only be issued by the minister. We can make a recommendation for a long-term lease. The minister will make a decision, and there are a lot of things in play that we have no control over. But I think getting a long-term lease into the plan of management, supporting it, is critical. And I think that's the thrust. That's what we need, is to give...
Councillor Leslie, I've already spoken.
So it's just that the request for a long-term lease, with Councillor McAndrew's support, I think it should really be an appropriate lease.
Yeah, I've got no problem with that, Mayor. I've got no problem.
Okay, any other discussion? Councillor Coleman.
I felt it was important that I second Councillor Statham's motion. We needed to have this debate. We all respect what the Portland's Men's Shed do. We all understand how important they are to the community. And in essence, I think we're all here for the same purpose, which is to support the Portland's Men's Shed.
Exactly, and who's to say down the track that that Portland may want to move to a different area? You know, you don't know if they're stuck with a lease in one particular place. They may want to move to a better place, or a place where they think that they can be better served, or larger, or anyway. Any more discussion? Okay, then I'll put the amendment. Those in favour? Those against? Councillor Statham is against. Now, that becomes the motion. Now, Councillor, you've foreshadowed another amendment?
Yeah, look, it does get to the thrust of what I was talking about, but I think you talked about that there is a current lease on the shed they've got, is there, if I may, through them, Mr Muir. The current lease for their shed, is it possible that can be extended to cover the Mick Moore Pavilion? Can be added as an addendum in the interim?
Not wanting to complicate matters any more than they already are. The intention of the licence was to get the men's shed their tenure for Mick Moore Pavilion, and that's what the intention of the licence was.
Yep.
The building I understand they're occupying at the moment is occupied with no tenure. So whether we want to complicate matters and seek a second licence for for that area.
I'm sorry, I'm not asking for a second
I-
license. If it can be just added as an addendum to the existing agreement, that it incorporates that building as well.
I think I'd be happy with something that
I know,
in lies that we investigate the most appropriate solution, given that the men's shed might not be moving to Mickmore Pavilion immediately, as I understand they mightn't be.
if I could then, I'd like to put up as an additional point, which is not inconsistent with what you've said, that the administration review the current agreement for the Portland's men's shed to determine if the Mickmore Pavilion can be incorporated into that agreement as an addendum. And then an additional point to that would be that if a separate licence is required for the Mickmore Pavilion prior to the adoption of the plan of management and a formal lease, the council contribute $500 annually towards the maintenance of the building by the Portland's men's shed. That's if they've got to be hit with another licence fee.
Before I ask for a second, Councillor Ring, I'll just see if that's incorporated, if the, no. Okay. That's
fine.
Can I have a second to Councillor Ring's amendment? Councillor Goodwin. Would you like to speak to Councillor Goodwin? Right. Any other discussion on Councillor Ring's amendment? Yep, I'll get it put up.
Look, I want to speak against Councillor Ring's amendment because I don't think it's needed. Currently we have 1, 2 and 3. I would have thought developing the plan of management would consider all matters of the Mickmore Pavilion and the current area that's used by the men's shed, because this resolution's not just saying Mickmore Pavilion, it's talking about a home for the men's shed. So I honestly can't see the need, and I can't support 4 and 5. That could all, as far as I'm concerned, be dealt with during the negotiations between council staff and the men's shed about moving forward to the future.
Any other discussion?
I'm going to speak against it as well. If we considering contributing $500 to Portland men's shed, we'd have to do the same for the other men's shed.
Agreed.
Can I speak again, please, Councillor
Yes.
Thompson?
You've got the right to reply before we put it, Councillor Statham. So is there any other speakers before Councillor Statham speaks? I'll hang on, I'll have to put the amendment first.
Certainly.
If you just take your seat, Councillor Statham. Those in favour of Councillor Ring's amendment? Those against? I declare it lost. So we go back to the motion now that, now you can have the right to reply, Councillor Statham.
I'm not 100% sure Councillor McAndrews saying that the Creamer Park plan of management has to yet be done. In my writing, I had realising the Creamer plan of management is yet to be done. So I don't see a difference there. I see that that is just changing the way I've worded mine. And even though the men's shed have been given the go-ahead for the new location, you know, was that given the go-ahead when there wasn't a plan of management? I've been asked that today. How did that happen? And I see really the main point is for the gentleman in the men's shed is to get Adam Marshall, the Minister, and Paul Toole on board as soon as possible, because it's coming Christmas. They will be away for several months over Christmas without making big decisions. And I think that, you know, they're going to move into that shed. They've been given the okay. It's going to be some time before they move into the shed. But the other 2 points on my notice of motion, which I think are very important, is that the men now are paying $549 and they haven't been in the shed. They started working there in August. I think it would be very fair to not ask them to pay that until they actually go into that shed. And the other thing that I think is very important at this moment in time is just very simply that the men's shed need to know where they're going. Yes, if it's not a 99-year lease, which is what they proposed to me, that was not my words to them, they feel like they can go and involve a whole lot of money in there and that would be it. But the other request they've made, a very simple request which hasn't been answered or questioned tonight, is there's a small, very small block of land that would hold probably 10 cars. It doesn't stop the traffic. There's a full flow of traffic. It needs landscaping desperately. They are willing, with my help and some other people's help, to landscape that area and beautify it for just the parking of those cars. So tonight I would like to see that voted on. I think it would be criminal tonight not to vote on the small amount of landscaping they've requested and the small inquiry is to say they do have to pay that $549 just at the moment. Could that be deferred for another few months to when they go into that building? And basically the rest of it is, we know the plan of management's not done, but to get things moving we have to write to Adam Marshall and Paul Toole so that we can get things moving, whether they give a 50-year lease or a 100-year lease.
Thanks, Councillor Statham. I'll just get a couple of comments from Mr Muir.
And I have a point of order. Sorry, Mayor Thompson, if I may.
Let me hear your point of order.
We've already voted on the amendment, my understanding, is that correct? The amendment now becomes the motion?
It does.
Where are we at?
It does.
So
but Councillor Statham's still entitled to a right of reply.
So now the amendment became the motion, so now the motion
will be put as is, yes, you are dead right. Just before we vote, Mr Muir has just got a couple of points to make.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. But going back to the complication, that the whole premise behind the licence, which was going to be finalised to achieve the short-term tenure for the men's shed until such time as the plan of management could be prepared, was that they were occupying another building. So the licence wasn't to be applied over that building, it was to be applied over the Mick Moore Pavilion. And from what I understand through what's happened in the notice of motion I read and some of the debate back and forth, is that the Mick Moore Pavilion is not likely to be occupied immediately or even for some time, and currently there is no tenure over the area they are occupying, in which case whether consideration should be given to the licence fee being applied to the building where they are currently occupying and transferred to the Mick Moore Pavilion once the works are complete. That could be something that could be considered. In terms of what we do know from our research is the council couldn't grant a licence for a car park until the plan of management for Kramer Park has been prepared. So that's just advice.
Thanks, Mr Muir. I take on board your advice. I'm going to put it now. I'll put the motion. Those in favour of the motion? Those against? Councillor Statham. Notice of motion, Councillor Ring, digital communication. Have I missed one, have I? Oh. Have I got a seconder? Yeah. Councillor Smith. Councillor Ring.
Mayor Thompson, our current council website, I'm not too sure about the Facebook, I've only sort of been involved in Facebook the last 3 or 4 years, was solely developed originally by our IT manager, who also is our Rights to Information officer. And that's a big job, and it was a good job when it was done. But we live in an age where digital information is changing rapidly, the way it's done is changing, and unless you have the resources to continually monitor and tweak these things, you get dead ends in there. You get links that are broken, you get staff contact details that are inaccurate because staff left 5 years ago, and I found some of those. Now, in the course of looking at various committees and different things over the last couple of years, I've actually looked at pretty much every council's website in New South Wales. Ours, quite a reasonable website. Some people have complained that it's clunky, and that can be through inexperience in using web and looking for information. But recently we put out the community participation plan, and it sort of brought to the fore the concerns people have raised about our website with the dead ends, going to links that are no longer there. That is not a fault or criticism of the staff, because we have to provide the administration with the resources in order to review and constantly update these resources. So what I'm asking for is that the administration review the current website and our social media use and how we share information through these to make sure that we're meeting best practice, to make sure that we're at our optimum level, but also what cost to improve. This is not necessarily something that's going to be fixed in the next budget, but we need to know what we can improve, how we improve it, but more importantly, what resources. It may mean having additional resource 1 day a week or a day a fortnight, I don't know, which can go through and make sure all the links, all the contact details are correct and up to date. And that's basically what I'm asking for. I wrote this at the last minute. It is a fairly rough read, and I do apologise for that. I wrote it the night before it was due to go in because of personal commitments. But it's about getting a report back on from the administration on how we can review and improve our digital communication and what cost. So then we can consider this in the forthcoming budget process.
Thanks, Councillor Ring. Councillor Smith? No. Any commentary? Councillor Leslie?
Sorry, thank you, Mr Mayor. I apologise. I actually haven't looked through the Council's website in recent times. But a lot of websites have, at the bottom of every particular item, last reviewed with a date. Now, from memory, that wasn't there recently. That wasn't there last time I checked. So I'm asking, is it there now? And if it's not, perhaps that particular little statement at the bottom of particular items could be put there so that, you know, when it makes it really easy for council staff just to quickly flip through it and think, oh, that was the 1st of October 2019. It needs to be redone or rechecked, even if nothing has to be changed.
Councillor Coleman?
Websites are quickly becoming obsolete. There's not many people that use or utilise websites, but Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn are becoming very popular. So I'm hoping that'll incorporate this into the review. I did ask a question a few months ago in regards to Facebook, who answers those questions in regards to residents asking, you know, about this and about that. So I'm hoping that there'll be part of this process, there'll be community consultation as well.
I think Councillor Ring included that in his commentary. Councillor Statham?
Yes, I'm just wondering, Mayor Thompson, does this delve into operational, or is this something councillors can be involved in?
Mr General Manager?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It does delve into operational, but it's also something that we need to look at. I mean, the idea of having a review of our web page is a good one. It's always very difficult on every issue to determine what is policy and what is operational, but in this case, I take Councillor Ring's statement at the beginning of this. This web page was developed by our existing staff, and the particular staff member had a lot of other things to do in the normal course of events, and sort of it fits into that category where if anybody's going to help Lithgow, it's got to be Lithgow people, Lithgow staff. So we welcome the opportunity to do the review. We will do that. We'll look at Facebook and all the others. We will consult, but we'll also take the advice of the experts in this matter, because we don't profess to be expert in Facebook or any of those. Okay.
You're doing their very best under these circumstances.
As Councillor Ring indicated, through you, Mr Mayor, the staff members concerned here, we have two particular staff members that do respond to Facebook comments and do design the web page, and to their credit, they have developed those skills over the years without additional cost to council at all. So again, it's Lithgow helping Lithgow.
Thanks, Mr General Manager. Any other discussion before Councillor Ring's got his right to reply? No? Good.
Mayor Thompson, there's a recent survey done of all councillors. We've all got copies of it. Yeah, the issue of operational as a policy and strategic, there are grey areas. However, we set the budget. We approve the budget. The administration will bring it to us. This is preempting the councillor initiative process that is in place in this council, where we can bring initiatives to the council once a year to be considered in the budget process. There's no criticism of staff, But if our staff, and Mr Muir expressed it once at a meeting recently, our staff operate in the smell of an oily rag. We vote the resources for them to do the job, and it's difficult because we have a finite budget. But we can't vote resources if we don't know what's needed. It's no different to Mr Edgecombe and his work, or Mr Buckins and the water. We need to know what we have to allocate and budget for in the future. To me, this is not operational, this is strategic, and we need to be thinking to the future and how we expend our very scarce resources.
Thanks, Councillor Ring. Okay, shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? Councillor Statham's against. Notice of motion, Councillor McAndrew, attracting NRL games to Lithgow. Councillor Smith, second.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I do understand that this matter may have been talked about so many years ago. I can't recall, but I know it has been spoken about. Look, in recent years we have seen NRL games played in both Bathurst and Mudgee, our two adjoining council local government areas. In fact, NRL teams have travelled through and stayed in our LGA to compete in these games. It is time that council investigated the possibility of staging NRL games here in Lithgow at the Tony Lucchetti Sports Ground. One of the things that triggered this notice of motion was a discussion with Councillor Smith, who advised me one of the recent games in Bathurst, the Storm, the whole Storm side had dinner at the Black and Gold Cabin and then moved on to undertake the game at Bathurst. So, you know, we've got Sydney teams driving through our local government area to either go to Bathurst or to go to Mudgee. And, you know, we're right on Sydney's doorstep. We've got electric trains to here. It's the furthest. They don't go to Mudgee. They don't go to Bathurst. You've got fans from whoever may be playing be able to virtually come up out of Sydney by train and go straight to the game. And of course, in my view, we have one of the best grandstands in the Central West. That Ashley grandstand is absolutely magnificent. Even more so with the work that we've undertaken there over the last few years. I know there's been issues raised with me about cost and how do we do it, what's appropriate, where does the money come from. We've been compared with the Glen Willow complex at Mudgee. Well, bearing in mind the Glen Willow complex at Mudgee, and I stand to be corrected, had millions of grant money thrown at it to achieve what they've got there now. Now, if it's good enough for Bathurst and Mudgee, it's good enough for Lithgow. Now, what I've asked for is council engage with the NRL regarding what is required by them to stage NRL games here in Lithgow, which would I expect, facility upgrades at the Tony Lucchetti Sports Ground. And two, a report be provided in the new year outlining the requirements, staging cost funding options, including any grant funding opportunities. If there's a will by either the state or the federal government to bring people out of Sydney and do the best they can for regional rural areas in promoting them, then we should be able to, in my view, ask for grant funding to do something with the Tony Lucchetti Sports Ground to be able to attract NRL games from Sydney, which is just down the road.
Thanks, Councillor McAndrew. Councillor Smith.
When Councillor McAndrew spoke to me about this, last year I had the privilege, as did Councillor McAndrew, to go and watch the Laurie Daly Andrew Johns Cup. Now, that's under 16s and under 18s that played at Lithgow Showground. It was a great day. It was great to see Penrith come up here and play our kids up here, and the Western Rams played, and I think Councillor Goodwood knows all about it as well. There was players from all over the regional Western New South Wales played in our town. It brought a lot of people here. NRL can only be good. I've spoke directly to Craig Bellamy about this, and they don't get any higher than Bells. He's the best in the game, and Bellamy said to us, if Robbie Clough and myself pushed for the Melbourne Storm to stay at the Black Gold Cabins, not for the sake of Rob getting all the money, it was for the sake of promoting rugby league in our area. We wanted him to stay there, have a coaching clinic at the Wang Oval or Lithgow Showground to promote our rugby league and our towns. It's a great idea. It mightn't happen next year or the year after, but we need to get the ball rolling and we need to chase grant money over this. We've seen the new sprinkler system put into the showground. Mr Edgecombe has got his crew working on that on all our local sporting fields. It's about time we promoted rugby league in a big way. I hate seeing Penrith drive through Lithgow and go to Bathurst and play. Hate seeing the Dragons go to Mudgee. I follow the Dragons. We get flogged, but I still follow them. You know, I want it here. I want rugby league promoted here. It's a great money spinner for our town, and we need to get right behind it.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Statham.
As Councillor McAndrew enlightened to earlier, back in 13 and 15, I believe, we pushed very hardly for NRL games to come to Lithgow, and I believe the capacity of seating was just out of the question. Unfortunately, we needed, I think, another $11,000 or $15,000 worth of seating. It would be in the council minutes. There would be a write-up in the council minutes. The reason Elton John didn't come to Bathurst is because simply we didn't have the availability of seating. To Lithgow. But I do believe that if it is possible to get additions to our grandstand and seating around either side of the oval, whether it's hired seating, we will have a lot better chance. But at the moment, the main reason, or the only reason that we couldn't get that NRL game, and I'm sure you remember, Councillor Thompson, it was in the 2012 council, that we tried on 2 occasions to get people to come here prior to going to Mudgee, but we don't have the facility of seating capacity at this moment.
Yeah. The other, that will all come in the report, I would believe. Any other speakers before Councillor McAndrew?
I just have a question.
You can ask a question, please.
Yeah, I just have a question. In regards to what Councillor Statham said in regards to that they tried to go forward in 2012 on ARCSFAT, was it a motion to council or was it just an inquiry that happened back then? So was it a motion on the books?
I do believe it was a motion from Councillor McAndrew that we
Councillor Inzatari was the first
or Councillor Inzatari, it may be. But irrespective of that, we did ask for a report, and seating was a problem. The whole thing is, with that type of seating, we would need to bring in tiered seating. But as far as the other seating, our grandstand would hold twice as much as either of the other 2 grandstands. Either at Bathurst or at Mudgee.
So my question was there a motion on the books at the time?
Definitely. I think Councillor Inzatari, ex-Councillor Inzatari, and I believe perhaps Councillor McAndrew, over a 2-year period, inquired about NRL games in Lithgow.
Okay, any other speakers? Councillor Ring.
Mayor Thompson, look, NRL, AFL, cricket, music, I don't really care. I do commend Councillor McAndrew for bringing this, because if we don't put up ideas like this, look at them, cost them and work towards them, they never happen. He's looking at NRL, but there's no reason if you've got a field suitable for NRL, you can't get AFL, cricket, soccer or something else. But we need to know what's involved. And it might be that the showground's not suitable. It might mean going to a greenfield site. But if we don't look at it, it's not going to happen. And given that we're talking about Lithgow, being a dormitory suburb of Sydney, we're talking about increasing it. We want to have excellent facilities here. So I think it's a great idea to look at it.
Councillor McAndrew, right to reply.
Yeah, just very briefly, I can't recall when it was bought before council, but it's time we got serious with it this time. If it was bought before council, it didn't last too long, it didn't go too far. I've simply asked for a report. I know that things like costs and that have got to be looked at clearly. Look, the Glen Willow complex, Councillor Goodman played there. It was a lot worse than what we've got here currently to what it is now. So, you know, it's doable, but it was doable at Glen Willow with a great deal of... I don't believe it can be done unless there's a great deal of grant funding put forward to our community to try and have something like that on the doorstep of Sydney. So I look forward to the report by staff about what's required, and then we can have a good long debate at that stage when it comes back. I'm saying it's not to be next week or next month, but give our staff time and opportunity to talk to the NRL, and even if the NRL want to send people up to have a look at what we've got, I'm not sure what the process is. That's why I've asked for the report, and I've asked for it to be brought back in the new year to give everyone some time.
Thanks very much, Councillor McAndrew. I shall put that then. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Question with notice. Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move that the question and answer be noted.
Thank you. We move to returns of disclosure of councillors and designated persons. There's a recommendation on the bottom of page 15. Does somebody like to move? Moved Councillor Statham, seconded Councillor McAndrew. Councillor Statham.
I know it's a lengthy report and I think we're all aware of our obligations to local government.
Councillor McAndrew? Didn't you second that?
On the disclosures, designated person, it's just to be noted.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Model Code of Conduct.
I'll move that. Thank you.
Yeah, unanimous. Oh, no, sorry, I didn't vote on that last one. Yeah. Those in favour? Unanimous. Model Code of Conduct.
Move, Mayor.
Moved Councillor McAndrew, seconded Councillor Statham. Councillor McAndrew.
The recommendation simply asks that the council authorise the General Manager to lodge a submission with the Office of Local Government, OLG, outlining the view of council determined at this meeting. I believe we should determine that the $50 cap on the value of gifts that may be accepted by council officials and council staff is appropriate. And I want to read from the body of the report the reasons why. And I quote from the report at page 17. Well, to give some background, in summary, an email was received from the Office of Local Government seeking council's views on the Model Code of Conduct, gifts and benefits by way of consultation with councils. The Office of Local Government sought the views of council in relation to the gifts and benefit. And then I read importantly, out of the 95 submissions received in response to the consultation draft of the Model Code of Conduct, only 5 raised concerns about the $50 cap on the value of gifts that may be accepted by council officials. And it goes on further. It has been suggested that the cap on the value of gifts should be, for council, should be raised to 500, which I don't agree with. And specifically, the OLG is seeking views on whether $50 is an appropriate monetary value for the cap on the value of gifts that may be accepted by councillors. If the $50 cap on the value of gifts that may be accepted by council is not appropriate, at what value should it be set? If it is suggested that the cap on the value of gifts that may be accepted should be raised, should it be raised uniformly for all council officials, or should it be just raised for councillors and the $50 cap retained for other council officials such as council staff? And it's important, and I'll get to that in a moment. If it is suggested that the cap on the value of gifts that may be accepted should be raised for councillors and not for other council officials such as council staff, why does your council believe that councillors should be subject to a different standard than the one that applies to other classes of council officials in relation to the acceptance of gifts? I believe we should be all equal, we should be all under that same restriction, and I believe the $50 gifts is appropriate, and I'd certainly be moving that our submission should outline that to the Office of Local Government.
Thanks, Councillor McAndrew. Councillor Statham.
I totally agree with Councillor McAndrew. I think it's insane to think that we could even think about taking a $500 gift for something. We're here elected by the public to work for the public and not receive gifts. In fact, I don't even think we should be allowed to have any gifts. I think that it should be you get your small allowance as a councillor, and gifts is sometimes you forgot to recommend, got to identify that you were given a gift. I think it's $50 is more than enough, and I think all council staff would be happy with a $50 cap on that. I think it's ludicrous to expect anything else.
Thanks, Councillor Statham. Any other commentary? Councillor Coleman.
I don't have any objection what's being said. I just have a few questions. When the General Manager is taking in consideration all that's been said here tonight, this motion was actually discussed at the local government conference and passed. Will you be taking what was passed at the local government conference in regards to...
Mr Mayor, through you. No, I'll be taking the concerns of this council. I'll be representing the decision of this council.
So I just wanted to ask that question. That's all I have.
Thanks, Councillor Coleman. Any other discussion? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Proposed council meeting dates? Councillor Smith. Councillor Statham.
Mr Mayor, I might just ask Andrew Muir, I think item 3 might have to be deleted.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just recommend item 3, where it refers to the Economic Development Committee. It says Mondays, December 2019. We've actually got a meeting set down for November, so I'm suggesting that December 2019 be deleted.
Councillors aware of what's happened there? December 2019, deleting point 3? Okay. Councillor Smith, do you want to speak to this? Councillor Statham? No. Councillor Leslie?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it's actually very sensible that we're holding a meeting in January. But last 2 years, we didn't actually hold a council meeting, but as it turned out, we had a special meeting on both of those January meetings. But also I'd like to move an amendment that it be held on Wednesday the 29th, not Tuesday the 28th. It's only a minor thing, but I think it just gives you 1 day extra from the weekend. So I'll move that as an amendment. And I'd like to note that it's 12 months, that January meeting would be the 12 months anniversary of the special council meeting, which was called last year, earlier this year, to discuss the special rate variation, which was held. Are you aware, Mr Mayor, of any matters arising from that meeting that have yet to be finalised?
I have to take that on notice, Councillor Leslie. I haven't got that in front of me.
Perhaps the General Manager might know.
Thank you, councillors. I have to take that on notice as well. Obviously, you know something I don't.
No, I think we all know.
Well, happy to second that amendment.
Any speakers to the amendment? Okay, I'll put the amendment. Those in favour of the amendment? The amendment comes to motion. I'll now put the motion. Those in favour of the motion? Unanimous. Thank you. Mobile coverage survey.
Happy to move.
Move Councillor Coleman. Second, Councillor Ring. Councillor Coleman.
We're now moving into the day and age where majority of people have mobile phones. There's very few of us that have a landline. I think this report is very important, and I think mobile coverage across our district is very important, especially for safety and security of our families.
Councillor Ring.
No.
No?
Nothing.
Any discussion? Councillor McAndrew.
Yeah, Mayor, could I ask the mover and seconder if they'd allow me to add an extra point? We've got 1, 2 and 3. I'd like an extra point that a meeting be arranged with Telstra representatives for all councillors, similar to what we did with NBN, and I'll give the reasons why if the mover and seconder are happy to do that. The reasons why, when you go to page 21, the majority of respondents, 77%, stated they use Telstra. That's important, but it's not more important than the next point. As you recall, Mayor, the GM and our IT staff met with one of these respondents who'd been doing a lot of work in relation to the poor, not only the poor coverage of mobile phones, but the diminishing coverage of mobile phone. It's getting worse. I don't think anyone would disagree with me. It's getting worse, not better. That independent resident provided copies of correspondence with Telstra regarding the poor signal strength. He was advised that 2 Telstra towers were having outages. My understanding is that those towers are still having outages. So although there's other providers, Optus and the other, Telstra do have a lot of the poles and wires, for want of a better explanation of that, and I think it is appropriate that we meet specifically with Telstra on those 2 points on the towers, and of course the majority of our respondents, 77%, are with Telstra. So if the mover and the second would be happy to include that, I'd like that included.
I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Waste less, recycle more, successful grants. Somebody move?
I'll move that.
Councillor Statham. Councillor Ring. Councillor Statham.
Well, I think it's a very lengthy report, and I think a very beneficial report. If you read through it, there are many areas of our local government area that are struggling, and in some of them, particularly the Glen Alice and Glen Davis refill, they're in the Wallamai Park. They're very close to where there's been some fires, and I think that doing something new and having landfill arrangements changed there will benefit those worried residents down in that area. I think it's a comprehensive report.
Thanks, Councillor Statham. Councillor Ring? No. Councillor McAndrew.
Yes, Mayor, some questions on, and this item really flows into the next one, but I'll leave my comments to the next one as well. It's in relation to the operational review of rural landfills, but I have some questions in relation to item 11.2.1. The proposal is to close the Cullumbullen landfill and the closure of the Glen Davis landfill. I understand from the report that there's been consultation with Cullumbullen residents regarding the closure. I think I've got that right. I can't find in the report where there's been any consultation with Glen Davis.
What is it? 2021.
Page where?
Yeah.
I've got page 23 here and 24.
Mr Muir.
No consultation as yet for Glen Davis. The closure date we're looking 2020-2021, whereas Cullumbullen actually now getting very imminent towards the end of this year.
The other question I've got, and you'll see the reason why when we get to the next report, at the bottom of page 23 it says Council was unsuccessful in the remaining 2 grant applications for closure of the Wallerawang landfill and closure of Capety landfill. So there's no money for those 2. Okay, those were just my questions, Mayor. You'll see when we get to the next item the importance of those.
Any other discussion? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Operational review of rural landfills.
Mayor, I want to move a totally different recommendation, that which is in front of us on page 29. I want to move that we just put on hold the proposed closure of Wallerawang landfill until we can get an idea of the impact of Cullumbullen, the impact of Glen Davis, and get a feel. We're
Happy to second that.
I've got a second. Let's hasten a bit slowly in relation to this. It's not going to hurt us. Let's give us an opportunity to have a look. There's no money for the Wallerawang anyway, as reported in that previous report. And I must admit, I do get nervous when we talk about only one rural landfill, Portland. And that makes me nervous. That's what the proposal talks about. We'll end up with our Lithgow, and we'll only have one proposed landfill, as we understand it, at Portland.
Mr Mayor, can I just clarify the amendment or the change? It's 1, defer the proposed closure of Wallerawang landfill.
Yes, yeah. I was going to, GM, just take out number 1, but a recommendation, but you can't, because 1, 2, 3 and 4 all relate to the same thing. So I just think it's a matter of moving the deferral, and let's hasten a little bit more slowly as moving forward dealing with this matter.
Councillor Coleman.
I concur with Councillor McAndrew. I think we need to slow the process down a little. My other concerns are at the moment that we need to look at investing in recycling And I did put a motion up a few months ago in regards to reviewing how we encourage residents to recycle and renew. And considering that we need to still do that, I think we need to slow this process down.
Sorry, can I just ask, what would the EPA say if we were to do that? If we were to ask for a deferral, what would be the consequences?
No consequences, is it?
We don't really know. I mean, they're certainly pushing for this to happen. Whether any deferral would sway them in any way, I don't know.
Sorry, will we have to provide evidence about why we want to defer it? Would that be something?
Not unless they are required of us, which they haven't as yet.
Look, I from the chair, the way that I see it is that because of the fill to cover the landfill, and there's plenty of it around at the moment, they want to use that to, and when you look at the dates, where Lerrawong was, I think, not 2034, 2035. I mean, we sat here going back some, and Councillor McAndrew will remember this, we sat here some 10, 12 years ago where the RTA said that there was going to be no Bells Line of Road until 2033. So things change so quickly, and you know, like in 2034, if Lerrawong's still around, you're going to have all those tunnels coming through the Bells Line of Road, so there'll be plenty of fill again. So yeah, I agree. Move cautiously here, and at least go. We'd have to have some long consultation with the people of Lerrawong when you want to change the dates by that much. That's the way that I see it, anyway. Okay, any others? No? Councillor McAndrew, right to reply?
Respond to the question asked by Councillor Goodsall. We're not sitting on our hands. We're moving to close Cullumbullen and Glen Davis. And I'll make the point again. There's money for that. There's no money for Lerrawong. There's no money for Lerrawong. So the EPA can't say too much when there's no money available. So in other words, we need to hasten slowly.
Councillor, Mr Mayor.
I think to say there's no money available, I don't think I quite agree. The council's been financially planning for this, so that the funding would have to come from council. What was able to happen with the Waste Less Recycle More grants was that a great deal of that planned expenditure was able to be saved. So I think that's just something that just has to be clarified. The 2034 date was something which, in our discussions with EPA, we were not happy about, because we put that to them in our previous strategy as to what would be the closure date. And they didn't comment on that. And then they started to have issues sometime after that document was prepared. And we pointed out that they didn't comment on that. And be that as it may, they have issues particularly with Lerrawong, particularly with issues such as waste coming from the regulated area into Lerrawong. And the other key matter with Lerrawong, this material that is being able to be sourced from Sydney will save us a great deal of money. I think we've potentially set up $630,000 in terms of that rehabilitation work that will have to be done no matter what.
Any other discussion? I shall put the revised recommendation then. Those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Two-storey dwelling, 37 Inch Street,
Mayor
Lithgow.
Thompson, I'd like to move that with amendment, if I may.
You just want to change the recommendation?
Yep. I would like to move to defer determination of this development until the November meeting, and that the administration organise an on-site meeting with the proponents as a matter of urgency. If I get a second, then I'll explain my reasoning. Okay. I was asked to meet with the proponents mid-September. I then put in a call-in request, but there's an issue with the timing, as has been explained to me, Mr Muir, that's fine. I have spent a lot of time with these people. I've got lots of correspondence between council and themselves. And they spoke highly of Mr Muir's staff. They're absolutely brilliant. My concern is the condition placed on this development by Water and Wastewater, which is to run a 100 millimetre extension of the 100 millimetre water main from Inch Street into Inch Lane. I believe the impost of that is unreasonable. It's a cost of in excess of $40,000 to $50,000. This is a small site, a small development. Now, the report itself doesn't go into a lot of detail about why they're asking for this, other than it doesn't comply with, in the opinion of the administration, fire and rescues. Bear with me for a minute. Fire hydrants for minor residential development. This provides guidelines. Council under the Water Management Act or regulations is required to ensure adequate fire hydrants consistent for the needs of firefighting. Now, two of the items in those guidelines, item 6.1 requires a carriageway 4 metres unobstructed. Basically, that is Inch Lane. Item 7.12, if there is no height, it requires that the development is within, the distance between hydrants and the mains in the streets is 120 metres. They require a development to be within at least halfway over that. Between 29 Inch Street and 31 Inch Street, there's a small lane. It's only 3 metres wide. At the front of 29, 2 metres onto the road, there's a fire hydrant. If there was a fire, the way it operates, going by this document, the fire truck would pull up very close to the proponent's development. They would then run a 60-metre hose from the fire hydrant to service the fire tanker. That meets the requirements. So I'm at a loss to understand why the administration are requesting this condition. There are also other options in there if the hydrants aren't there. Mr Buckins is not here tonight to answer this. I only found this out very late last week. I was hoping to have more time to research this, to have Councillor Goodwin out there, he's a retained firefighter, to look at it. I'd like to make sure we are approaching this in the correct way. There was some discussion of similar developments where approval was given, properties are burnt down, but if there is a risk, and that is a legitimate issue, then I'd like to see some sort of risk assessment. I believe the guidelines provide adequate mitigation where the hydrant is outside of that scope. I believe that this development is consistent with the guidelines. So I'd like us to all go and look at it, to also have that document available to all the councillors to read, with Mr Buckins available so we can look at it and make a fair decision. Because I think 40 to 50,000 plus to develop a block which is only 200 square metres basically is a major impost.
Any other discussion? Okay, I shall put that the changed recommendation. Those in favour? Carried unanimous again. 11.2.4 Lithgow siding coal loader modification. Moved Councillor Smith, seconded Councillor Ring. Any discussion? No. Councillor Ring? No discussion? Okay, I'll put that then. Those in favour? Against? Carried unanimous. Call-in of development application, proposed garage, 76 Glenrock Place, Hartley.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'll move the recommendation. I've had representations from both sides in this one, and I felt it was an important principle for councillors.
Yep.
I thought it was an important principle for councillors actually to make the decision rather than just leaving it with the council staff on this particular matter. I would recommend that the councillors, I'm not calling for a site inspection, I think it's, but I would recommend that councillors actually take the time to go and look and check it so that you can decide, because both sides have merit, and so I think it's just a case for the councillors to go and check for themselves, and it may be It may form a principle, a precedent, it may not, but I felt that it was important that the councillors make the decision.
Mayor Thompson, I'd like to move an amendment, and that is that there is a site inspection organised by the administration, and that we also view the development from the adjoining property. I concur that it is difficult. I've talked to both sides. I've yet to meet the proponent, but I've had a number of discussions. I think there are a number of complexities to this. And I have discussed it at length with Mr Muir. I mean, what should be simple is never simple. There are complexities. I think, in fairness, we need to go out as a group, look at it, and to look at the issues from both sides.
Mayor, if I might.
All I'd like to say, I'm happy to agree with Councillor Ring, but we need to do this sooner than later. We've got one meeting before Christmas, and we need to get it resolved in between and resolve it at the next meeting. We can't let this go over the Christmas period. It needs to be expedited really very quickly.
Just before we go on, Councillor Ring made an amendment. I need a seconder. Yeah.
Mayor Thompson, before can I just add to that we have the meeting and we bring it back to the November meeting?
Yes, I would agree with that. Have I got a seconder to Councillor Ring's amendment? Councillor Goodwin, thank you. You speaking to the amendment, or?
Yeah, I intended to raise that point. So we now got a recommendation that the calling in, number 1, 2, an on-site meeting, and 3, the matter must be determined in November.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. Matter must be determined in November.
Councillor Statham.
Mayor Thompson, yes, I think the owners of the proposed shed have contacted everybody and had a very good talk to everyone. I believe they're doing everything in their power to get that shed put up in a manner that would be fitting to accommodate neighbours and themselves.
No, point of order.
Yeah, we're not debating it now. We're only going to. Yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
Okay. And we need the staff to move on that as quick as possible so that we can get down there and have an on-site meeting with councillors. Thank you. I'll put that then. Those in favour? The amendment, yes. Amendment becomes a motion, yeah. That's the amendment. Now the amendment becomes a motion. Those in favour of the motion, once again, thank you. Unanimous. Proposed subdivision.
Mayor Thompson, I'd like to move this with an amendment, if I may.
The amendment or changing the recommendation?
Sorry, to change the recommendation slightly.
Let's see what you've got to say, and then we'll see if we've got a seconder. Councillor Ring.
I believe that basically the development application be approved and appropriate conditions be attached to said approval.
I second that, please, second that.
Go through the conditions.
Mr Mayor, sorry. Mr Mayor, I wonder if Councillor Ring would just let me ask a question?
Well, I certainly will, under the circumstances.
We've just got this this new document. Has the applicant actually also seen this document, or is this something?
No.
Makes it difficult to.
Mr Mayor, if I might.
Yeah.
Councillors, the administration recommendation was to refuse this. In the circumstances where council wants to approve it, you need to have a set of conditions to protect yourself, to make sure that you're okay. So the administration has put together a set of conditions that will protect the council should they wish to approve this DA.
Well, can I then ask a question of meeting procedure? We certainly haven't determined whether we're going to approve or not approve at this stage. I certainly have a number of questions, and fair enough, the applicant may not have seen that, but I've read the report in detail, and I haven't seen this until tonight either. So I've made my what I'm going to say and debate about, and my views based on the report and the attachments attached to the report. I'm always nervous and not happy about late reports coming in on the night of a council meeting to be determined by councillors to make some difference. But coming back to my point, Mayor, we haven't made a decision to agree with it or not agree with it at this stage.
Yeah.
I've moved an amendment.
Yep, you have moved an amendment.
Now,
You have moved the motion, yep.
Sorry. The conditions, I haven't seen the conditions either. I did speak to Mr Mill. We've had lengthy discussions on this development, and at the last council meeting, he made it clear that he would have a set of conditions, and he did give me a commitment, he would have a set of conditions if an event the council voted to approve this development. It's already dragged on. These are standard conditions. At the last council meeting, I supported this development and I moved an amendment that we look at the concerns of council. And they were the only concerns in that report that I agreed with, and that was in relation to the retaining walls and the easement. That matter has been resolved. We have gone against two developments that council has recommended approval in the past, Atkinson Street and Colebrook Street, and that is our right as councillors. This comes down to a lot of subjectivity. I don't see that that's changed. I wouldn't, as I said at the last meeting, I would not buy one of these houses, but I don't think they're inappropriate developments. Council, in its LEP, decided that this area of town could have 300 square metre blocks. There's no development control plan, there's nothing that says the blocks must be X shape, Y shape. These houses provide a need for a market. There are people out there now that want smaller houses and will buy smaller houses. There are other developments there that I would call questionable, and they were done years ago, large units which are rectangular, just like blocks, unattractive buildings. I don't believe from what we've seen in the drawings and in the reports that these are unattractive. Go to Shell Harbour, Flinders. This is what you see. In a lot of subdivisions now, this is what you're seeing. If we're going to grow our town, and it is in our LEP to have smaller blocks, this is what we've got to expect. Smaller developments. The people who buy this won't have 3 and 4 kids. They'll be couples on their own, retired people, or people without children. I believe this is good for the community. It provides a different style of construction than which we've seen. I don't believe it'll set the standards, I don't think it's necessarily going to set a precedent that we're going to see this style. This is a unique block. I think they've managed the constraints of it well. This is what they bought, and I believe we should approve it.
Thanks, Councillor Ring. Councillor Coleman.
No, I'm fine.
Any other discussion? Councillor McAndrew.
Yeah, Mayor, I can't support the recommendation. I've read the report in detail. I've gone to the site and had a look along with yourself and others. I want to raise some of the issues raised by staff in relation to the application. The concerns we had at the time was retaining walls over easements. We know that's created issues in our community before. Understand the retaining wall is going to be removed now and they're going to batter back. That means there's going to be even less room to build on the top now, and I'm not sure. I've stood on the edge of that, and how they're ever going to batter that back and the height that it is beyond me. The document goes on, and I'm just quoting from the report from staff. The proposed development is an overdevelopment of the site, taking into consideration the site constraints. It also requires satisfactions of council's policy of building over easements. Council officers request that consideration be given to the reduction of the build form and the number of proposed lots to a maximum of 3 to address the above concerns. However, the applicant advised that his brief from the owner was to create 4 detached Torrens-style subdivided dwellings, irrespective. The staff document goes on, it picks up bulk and visual impact, private open space, contact and setting, building over easements, filling and levelling of land. It goes on and on and on. You know, real concerns by our staff. Goes further in conclusion, since the lodgement of the application, Council has written to the applicant on a number of occasions, as well as meeting on 3 occasions, seeking to address these issues, one of which, of course, reduction of 4 to 3. Council officers believe that the additional information proposal is submitted is not satisfactory to address fundamental town planning concerns. The applicant has failed to demonstrate the development would not have an adverse impact on the built environment. Therefore, it is recommended the applicant be refused. The reason for the refusal, and I'm probably repeating some that I've already said, is due to impacts of overdevelopment of the land, privacy and overlook into adjoining residential properties, bulk and visual impact on adjoining properties, irregular shaped allotments which result in an unattractive and undesirable streetscape, unusable private open space and solar access concerns to private open space areas of each dwelling. And I remind councillors that we oppose similar applications in Colebrook Street and Atkinson Street, and we ended up in a reduction in the number of townhouses in both of those locations, although I understand Colebrook Street is still going on. And it's not up to us to look at, determine the market. That's not our role, that's not our job. We don't determine the market determines itself. That shouldn't be something that councillors should worry themselves about. Our issue is about town planning concerns, and I think, and what's been put by the staff, is that they have put forward real concerns in relation to this development application. I think it's real concerns that councillors need to take notice of, and take notice of very, very carefully.
Thank you, Councillor McAndrew. Anybody else would like to speak?
Yep.
Councillor Goodsall.
I also support this development application. The concerns that were raised at the last meeting about this development, I feel like they've been addressed in regard to services and steepness of the property. If we haven't got a DCP, how do we determine what is overdevelopment on a site? How do we determine what usable space each resident needs in their own home? How do we know whether it's too much or too less? I think it's those reasons are subjective and they're opinions. There've been no complaints from residents. There've been no submissions from residents about the look. I think just looking at the pictures we have here before us tonight, I think that site's been an eyesore for a number of years, and I think it'll add to the diversity of our housing in Lithgow. And I think all DAs need to be considered independently. This one doesn't have any weight compared to Atkinson Street or wherever. This one needs to be assessed on its own, and I'm in support of it.
Thanks, Councillor Goodsall. Have I got anybody else that would like to speak? Okay, I shall put it then. Those in favour? Right of reply, Councillor Ring.
Just to reiterate this, in terms of privacy overlooking the blocks below, it's not really an issue. The people living there have not complained. There wasn't a complaint in other developments, and Councillor Goodsall's correct. We shouldn't really be bringing in Atkinson Street and Colebrook Street, but go and look at Sydney and other areas. The sort of issues talking about privacy overlooking units and blocks, it occurs. To me, what's important is the neighbours have not complained, not one complaint about this. They've all been consulted, they're all aware, and we should be aware of what's out there. I believe we should give this 100% support. Basically, that's it.
Thanks, Councillor Ring. Okay, I shall put that then. Those in favour of the revised recommendation? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against? 6 to 3. Declare that carried. Classification of land recently acquired, 16 Noon Street, Blackman's Flat. I've got a recommendation on the bottom of page 42. Have I got a mover? Councillor Ring. Seconded Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Ring.
I believe it's straightforward, Mayor. I don't believe there's a need to discuss.
Okay, any discussion? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Carried unanimous. Removal of trees from public land.
I'll move that. Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
Councillor Statham, seconded Councillor Goodsall. Councillor Statham.
I think it's been for a very long time now that we have to be responsible for trees that we move, particularly on public land, and I don't believe anybody's got the right to remove trees on public land that they don't own. So I think it's quite forward. The legal and the risk management implications, I think it's quite forward.
I have a problem with the dot points, the last dot point on page 43, where a tree is removed without council permission, those responsible may be charged for its replacement. My problem is, I'll give you a scenario. Someone rents a property and decides to get out their trusty chainsaw and chop off the tree in front of them. Is the penalty that they're then required to go down to the Lithgow Community Nursery and buy a tube stock and replace it? Because that's what it is. That's the cost of replacement. $5 to buy a tree to replace the 100-year-old tree that they've just chopped out. I would like to see that particular phrase changed to read, instead of for its replacement, for the value of the trees. And so that if the tree's worth the $10,000, $20,000 dollars, then that's what the person who chops it down is up for. They just you can't just decide, oh, this tree's blocking my view of Baldy Hill, and chop it out, and then go and put a tube stock in.
Councillor, I'll just see if they'll accept that as another dot point, and otherwise you'll have to move an amendment. You happy to accept that? Councillor Goodsall? Okay.
Excuse me, Councillor Thompson, could I just verify, please, that public land is also council-owned land? Is that correct or not? Thank you, Jonathan.
Councillor Smith.
So we're talking council-managed land as well? So we're talking Lake Wallace?
Are we?
Council-managed land?
We're talking about all public land.
Yeah, all public land, that's
yes.
good. 'Cause I think it's a great thing then, if it's going to come into Lake Wallace, because we've had on numerous occasions, people just pull up, trim trees down, cut them at will. This will be a very good policy, much needed in our area.
Can I ask a question also?
Good one.
Sorry, how do we decide on the price of a tree?
That's a good question. Yes.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Thompson, we do have qualified horticulturalists on council staff that can assess what species a tree is and then indicate a value for its replacement. But my intent with that last dot point wasn't just to charge for the tree removal. We are talking about public land, and members of the public typically are advised against performing works on public land, such as installing trees, because there becomes insurance issues if they get themselves in trouble, which is why I worded that so that we charge them for its replacement, including the costs of staff labour, should that be required.
Very good. Okay, and if everybody's happy, I'll put that then. Those in favour?
Just one more point, my right of reply. In situations that have recently occurred in and around Portland, I've had many complaints about trees being removed on Portland verges of council, and possibly too many trees within a certain subdivision. I've not become involved at all, but could you please tell me what the rules are when you're doing a subdivision as to how many trees that can be removed within that space, even though it's not public land? Or is that a completely different policy?
We'll have to take that question on notice.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, no more discussion. I shall put that then. Those in favour? Unanimous. Water report. Move Councillor McAndrew. Seconded Councillor Statham.
I want to move with a second point, Mayor. The first point is simply the water report be accepted. Number two, a report be provided to councillors on the total cost of the establishment of the clearance transfer system, including grants and ongoing maintenance and operating costs. And I'll explain my reasons why I've asked for that. You've seen in recent media reports the whole issue of water as a topical issue. There's been some local governments like ours that have planned...
Can I just get a second to do that, Councillor Smith? Thank you.
We have some local government areas like ours that have planned and spent money to drought-proof our community, and there's others that haven't. And I'm seeing now moves to have some form of water restrictions for all of New South Wales. That may seem appropriate for some, probably would be appropriate for some that haven't put money and infrastructure in to drought-proof their local government areas. We have. So I think it's important to have ready what we've done as a local government area in making sure that we've looked after our residents in our local government area in relation to the supply of water. So it would help if we could get that report.
I've got a question. I just hope that it can be answered. As this drought worsens, I just wonder about the capacity of the clearance transfer system to be able to supply enough water even for our own town. I know that we thought going back some time ago that we had the capacity of 14 megalitres a day. I just don't know what Lithgow uses. Maybe Mr Edgecombe could tell me, or what the capacity is of Lithgow's daily usage? Mr Trapp, sorry.
So currently the clearance transfer scheme is set up for 7 megalitres a day for transfer. Within the Lithgow area, we're currently using on average about 3 megalitres a day with 2 megalitres through out to the villages. So we manage that and we're able to transfer enough per day to service that.
Is that using Fish River water supply as well, though, or is that just coming from our own reservoir?
The 2 megalitres a day for the villages is through the Fish River supply, but we have the ability to backfeed out to all the villages through the Lithgow system and Oakey Park water treatment plant.
Yeah. Okay, then, so looking at that in real terms, most probably Lithgow uses, including the villages, about 5 megalitres a day. That would be...
On average, yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough, so we're well covered. Thank you.
Gives us none. What percentage do we get down to where, yeah, what is it? 8%. 8%, is it? All right.
That's okay. I knew that when we got down to 5%, we were getting none from Oban, and that was fair enough, yes. Okay, I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? Carried unanimous. Our drinking water management system.
Happy to second.
Councillor Statham and Councillor Coleman. Councillor Statham.
Oh, it's very forward. Mayor Thompson, I think it's a good report.
Councillor Coleman. Any discussion? I shall put that. Those in favour? Against? Carried unanimous. Precious sewers policy.
Happy to move.
Move Councillor Ring. Second Councillor Goodsall. Do you want to speak to Councillor Ring?
Just very briefly, Mayor Thompson, it's a good policy. It's been out in public exhibition. It allows us to move forward with plans at Cullumbullen, but it also allows us to use that technology and that policy elsewhere within the LGA. So it's got broader implications.
Any discussion? We'll put that then, those in favour. Against, carried. Financial statements, 11.5.
Happy to move.
Got a seconder? Yeah, Councillor Smith. This will come back at the November meeting anyway, the audit report with the auditors. So, any discussion?
No move for any
No.
discussion.
Okay. I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? Carried unanimous once again. Request for consideration of water accounts. 11.5.2.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Councillor McAndrew, seconded Councillor Ring. Councillor McAndrew, want to speak to it?
Just, I certainly support, and I take it that it's been consistent with the way that we dealt with other leaks. On that basis, I'm happy to, as I said, move and support.
No, there's nothing else I can add, Mayor Thompson.
Any discussion? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? Carried unanimous. Hardship request.
I'll move that way, thank you.
Happy to second with a question.
Councillor Statham and Councillor McAndrew.
It's becoming quite serious, Councillor Thompson, with the amount of money that we're going to be out of pocket with the water leaks that are occurring. However, from my understanding, it's fairly clear that some of them haven't been detected. They're genuine, and I believe that some of these people are really struggling and very mentally upset about this. So I think that the council, the recommendation for council to write off these, I think is very appropriate at this moment in time.
Well, that's the way we've been, Councillor Statham. We've been very consistent with this over a period of time, so I'm glad to see council is staying consistent with it. Any discussion? Councillor McAndrew?
Yeah, as seconder, I support it. I just want to, the previous item was clear. This one isn't clear in relation to the cause of the high reeds. So what was the issue with the high reeds identified and rectified? It doesn't tell me what it is. It doesn't explain in detail that it was, most of them we dealt with as leaks in areas that the resident can't find or can't get to, and it's taken a while to find. This doesn't give us an idea of what the issue was. I think for clarity and consistency, we need to know.
Mr. Gurney.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, it definitely was a leak in this case too, and the smart meter system will give us early warning of, or give property owners early warning of leaks too. So that will assist.
This was a leak?
Yes.
So it's just not reported in the report. We need to make sure that it's reported to stick with that consistency issue.
I'll make sure that's included in future.
Councillor Coleman.
In regards to the smart meters, where are we up to in regards to the rollout? Please.
So we're currently moving through the LJ. We've installed approximately 1,500 of the smart meters, and council staff have been notifying as we get leak detection notices through the my water system. Just through Lithgow at the moment.
Yeah, so you're just doing Lithgow at the moment.
Yep, and then we'll move in.
Any other discussion? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Carried unanimous. Mental health wellbeing.
I'll move that way, thank you, Councillor Thompson.
Councillor Statham and Councillor Goodsall. Councillor Statham.
Oh, I think it's a really great move and some improvement to think that Lithgow City Council now believes that mental health and wellbeing of the staff is a key organisational success and sustainability. Lithgow City Council is committing to promoting a sensitive and informed approach to mental health, ensuring that the staff are aware of the responsive to the needs of those who are at risk of developing or who have or are recovering from a mental health problem. I think the empathy towards people suffering from mental health has been acknowledged by the General Manager and staff, and I think it's an excellent idea.
Thank you. Councillor Goodsall. Any discussion? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Carried unanimous. Minutes of the Traffic Advisory Committee. Moved Councillor Goodwin.
I have a question.
Councillor Ring. Just Councillor Good.
Yeah, I'll move it with an amendment.
Well, you just want to change the recommendation.
Just to remove point 5 of the recommendation in light of the White Ribbon organisation becoming insolvent. The organisation committee have decided that we're going to postpone the walk till a later stage until we can determine what banner it's going to go under.
Fair enough. You're happy with that, Councillor Ring? Yep. Yep. Councillor Coleman.
Darryl answered my question, which is I was going to ask about regarding the fact that White Ribbon has gone into liquidation, but you answered that because I was concerned about point 5, so thank you for that.
Any other discussion? Councillor Smith.
I'd like to thank the TAL Committee for 6.3 on the concealed driveway at Barton Avenue, Wallerawang. Mr Dengate to be very, very happy with that result. Thank you very much.
Yes, it's been a long time coming. Any other discussion? I shall put the minutes of the Traffic TAL Committee. Those in favour? Against? Carried unanimous. Operations Committee meeting minutes. Moved Councillor McAndrew, seconded Councillor Goodsall. Councillor McAndrew.
Just very briefly on the last, on the recommendation number 12, I know I've been asked by a number of people. We got a report on unauthorised works being carried out on the Wattle Road, and we sought legal advice, and I'll let Mr Edgecombe explain it in more detail, but I understand that we've advised the person that's done it that it's got to be brought back to what it should be as far as we're concerned with the road, and they're to pay for it. Or
Mr Edgecombe.
Well, it'd be good to know where it's up to. That was the last thing we had said at the Operations Committee.
I'll just get a statement from Mr Edgecombe before I ask Councillor Goodsall.
Through you, Mayor Thompson, we have held that meeting with the persons who we believed at the time to be responsible. There's been some new information that has come to light, which we've passed on to our legal advisors, and we'll be following through with that information in due course and report back to the Operations Committee with the result.
Thank you. Councillor Goodsall.
You go.
Yes.
I'd just like to ask a question to Mr Edgecombe through you, Mr Mayor. At the last operations meeting was brought up about where are we up to with the on-site meeting at Wallerawang Public School. That was brought to this last meeting.
As soon as the minutes of the Operations Committee are endorsed by Council, we'll be moving on that promptly and organising that meeting and letting the members of the committee know when it will be held.
So on that day, we're going to have a look at two different things, aren't we? On the same day, we're going to have a look at the signage in regards to the no camping signage and the Wang School. I believe we're doing two in one.
That's correct.
Any other discussion? Councillor Leslie.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I have an amendment. But before I move the amendment, could I just ask the writers of the report that whilst I did attend the Operations Committee meeting, I'm not a member of the Operations Committee meeting, and I'd like that to be acknowledged in the minutes, because contrary to standing orders, we constantly get that the minutes motions are carried unanimously by the committee. Well, I don't want people to think that I voted in favour of it when I'm not a member of it, particularly when I'm about to move an amendment to the motion. So, and therefore I'd like to move an amendment to the recommendation, and my amendment is that the points number 8, 9 and 10 be deleted, and a report be brought down on alternative funding for this project. What the Operations Committee is asking for in this area is that $350,000 a year be taken from the operations budget and placed in a reserve to facilitate this upgrade, and that the upgrade be done in 2022-2023, should the council decide to do the work, the then council. This money will come out of the Operations Committee budget, and therefore the amount of money spent on roads, gutters, footpaths, drains, etc. will be reduced each year by $350,000. Our roads need this money, and it needs them spent on it now. The drainage problem at Lawrence Street, Cup Row and George Coates Avenue needs fixing now. It doesn't need to be, we can't wait until then. Now, I'm not telling the council how to write this report on alternative funding, but I would recommend that they seriously consider borrowing money to do this work. I've raised this before, but this particular case meets all the good requirements. It's a specific works project, and it's an expensive works project. It needs to be done urgently, not wait till 2022-23, and the benefits apply right across a different number of groups. Obviously, the residents who are currently subject to flooding will benefit from it. There's the disruption of traffic in Main Street and into George Coates Avenue. There's the benefit to sporting groups. Now, the sporting groups benefit because part of the proposal is that water that goes in these new pipes that have to be built at some point can be stored in reservoirs underneath the ovals. Not right? Anyway, well, I'm happy for that to be corrected. But my understanding of the committee was that water could be stored and irrigation could be used on the ovals. If that's not the case, well, I'm happy for Mr. Edgecombe to correct me on that one. But that was what was mentioned at the meeting. But again, I point out that interest rates on loans are at historically low levels. In other words, those people who will be using the facilities, i.e. those who are getting their drainage problem fixed, well, and the people who will be using the roads, that's the future. They're the people who will be paying for it. Now, they paid for it over a longer period, and so that money that's being taken out, the $350,000 each year, can be saved and used on those urgent roads we've got. The one thing we know in this community, and you read it on every Facebook page and every time someone puts up something, what about the roads? Before you do, for example, a number of comments on Councillor McAndrew's proposal about the NRL here. Now, I supported the NRL proposal, but a number of comments on Facebook was, yes, but what about fixing the roads first? You get it all the time. It is the major issue, and it's the major complaint for right across the board. And I think we need to take that seriously. We need to be aware that this is a concern, and this is the number one issue in our community. This recommendation of the Operations Committee is to remove $350,000 per year from that very budget, and I don't think it's right. I think we need to have a proper report, another look at alternative fundings, and that's my amendment.
Happy to second that.
Any speakers to the amendment? Mayor, I've got a question on it. We had a fairly comprehensive report at the Operations Committee meeting. I understood 8 and 9 were virtually priorities. The 350, 8 endorse the Main Street Stormwater Project in principle. Now, we've had a number of reports in relation to our problems with that, and the area Lawrence Street and Main Street, Lithgow, I understood that funding has been put into reserve for some time in relation to that, and we're still looking at options about the best way to deal with that. That's why it's been held up the best way to deal with how we get rid of that stormwater, major stormwater, priority stormwater issue in Lawrence Street and Main Street, Lithgow. So, I'd welcome some comments from Mr Edgecombe, who did address these issues at the Operations Committee, and my understanding of that was that they were priority issues and they were extremely important. I know our roads are important, we've got heaps of things that are important, but equally I was told at that meeting that these things are equally as important. So, I'll be guided by Mr Edgecombe, but there were other people at that Operations Committee meeting, as well as I, that listened to the report on these matters.
Yep, through you, Mayor Thompson. Firstly, I'd like to discuss what Councillor Leslie brought up. We did definitely discuss the benefits and of stormwater harvesting in relation to this project, but the scope of this improvement was simply the drainage improvements from Main Street through to Farmers Creek. But stormwater harvesting is definitely a viable option, but it comes secondary to removing the flooding issues, which is the primary concern. With regard to the Main Street stormwater project itself, we have been working on this as a solution for some time. The council's engineers have become aware of a lot of related infrastructure in the area that's put a stop to a lot of different options for the project, but this is the one that we've worked on in consultation with external consultants to develop, and we think it is the best and possibly the only way that we're going to remove a historical flooding issue in terms of the Lawrence Street, Main Street intersection. We haven't been putting money aside to date for this project, but there is a small amount that is currently in reserve to the tune of around $120,000, which is a start. I believe the intent of the resolution, and based on my recollection of the discussion, was that we continue to put $350,000 a year into reserve, but we investigate every single alternative between now and then to get this project done as soon as humanly possible, which is the point of point 11. That was my recollection. The council can decide otherwise and choose to resolve to use other sources of funding at its will.
Just a comment from the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to remind Council that within the last couple of months there was a Finance Committee where a recommendation report went through and ultimately adopted by Council recommending against borrowing. If I can just remind Council that we're still not fit for the future, and while roads are important, no two ways about it, the Financial Sustainability Council has to be number one priority in administration's view.
Mayor Thompson.
Yeah, Councillor Smith was just in front of you.
I've just got one question that gets asked to me regularly, and it's not in this report, but it comes up a lot. The Bridge Street valve is, what is it? Bridge Street into Inch Street, going down past the courthouse, going around towards the Workmen's Club. Where are we up to with that valve? Can someone enlighten me in regards to that work? Because a lot of people ask about when that's going to be fixed and when that road's going to be fixed.
Mr Trump.
So the valve's arrived. It's in Sydney. It's going through some testing prior to being installed. We've spoken to the contractor and we're looking at an establishment date on site of the 7th. And then following that, the works will pretty much continue for all the cut-ins, the remaining small sections of pipe being installed, and then the road repairs can be undertaken straight away.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Ring.
Yeah, Mayor Thompson, I'm not going to support the amendment. I believe pretty much what Jonathan Edgecombe said, that's my recollection of the meeting. We're looking at options. When Councillor Leslie is talking, all I could think of was a T Corp rep at the local government conference who badgered me about, oh, you must have backlog of work. Would you like to borrow money? Yeah, it's going free. There is no free money. Whatever money we borrow, we have to pay back. $350,000, it's going to come off the roads. We have one pool of money. The money's got to come from somewhere when we borrow. At any stage, we have to make difficult decisions as a council. I believe putting the $350,000 in. We have discussed in finance about internal loans, about borrowing against our own reserves. There are options we need to explore. Yes, interest rates are low, you still have to pay it back. And there is no guarantee those interest rates will be locked in at a very low level over a very long period of time. I think, I do agree with the General Manager, we need to be very conservative. there will be a time where we need to, and we haven't had the discussion yet, that might be something for the Finance Committee, we need to discuss our level of risk. How much risk are we prepared to take? That discussion hasn't been had. We really need to sit down and talk about it. Because whatever we borrow, we have to pay back, and the projects on our books now get cut so we can pay back. So it's not as simple as borrowing the money. Something gives. What we need as a council to do is how we can increase our revenue. That's part of our strategy planning. Increased revenue gives us more money to put back into the community. That's what we need to be focusing on.
Councillor Goodsall.
Yes, I don't support the amendment either. I like the recommendation as it stands. I was at that meeting also. Would I be able to ask if it's possible to have a media release, some sort of communication out to the public about Bridge Street, Edge Street, and when that will be commencing?
I believe that it most probably would be more appropriate to wait for Mr Buckins to come back, and he'll have all the information needed, and that'll be before the end of the week. And then we'll put out a media release. Okay, is there any more? Councillor Coleman, do you want to speak? No. I shall put the amendment then. Those in favour of the amendment? Those against? I declare it defeated. I shall now put the motion, or do you, Councillor McAndrew, right to reply? No. I shall put the motion then. Those in favour of the motion? Carried unanimous. Minutes of the Sports Advisory. Move Councillor Smith. Second Councillor Goodwin.
I have one question for my trusted friend over there, Mr Edgecombe. Mr Edgecombe, can you possibly tell us when the sprinkler systems in all the ovals will be up and working in regards to the new installation?
As far as I'm aware, Lithgow is complete and functional. I think from there we moved to Portland. I believe that is either nearing completion or complete. And Wallerawang should have already commenced or will be commencing shortly. So once Wallerawang has commenced, there'll be about 3 weeks of work because we're doing both ovals. Wang's done. Well, in that case, then that should be complete.
Councillor Goodwin. No discussion? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Carried unanimous. Urgency?
I have one.
Councillor Statham.
Yes, Mayor Thompson, I don't know whether you would consider this as a matter of great urgency, but I've been speaking to a lot of people around the electorate over the last couple of weeks, and it's been suggested to me that we should have the lowest water restrictions to commence in Lithgow. I think, as you know, our neighbours are struggling, and I believe if we don't start and have a very, very low-level water restriction, we're going to get people wanting to think that it's their right to buy our water. I think it would be a good education. I think the long-range weather forecast as of today is no great rain until March, and I'm just wondering whether it's inappropriate to suggest such a thing or whether it's something that we need to consider seriously.
Look, I believe I can't take that as a matter of great urgency, Councillor. Lithgow's put themselves in that position to have water, and it's not our fault that our neighbours haven't put themselves in the same position. So I can't really take that as a matter of great urgency.
We can bring a report back.
But we'll bring a report back to that effect. But Mr Buckins has made it quite clear that under the circumstances that we can't just put on water restrictions without being verified. Councillor Smith.
8 weeks ago, Mayor, someone run over the pedestrian refuge barricades at Wallerawang, and I'm just wondering, as a matter of urgency to our kids that cross that road on a regular basis, as we fought tooth and nail to get it in with, and a great thing, help with the council, I'm just wondering where our yellow barricades are up to, because there's none there, and we need them in sooner than later.
I'll just ask Mr Edgecombe to comment on that.
You're talking about the yellow and red chevrons? Yeah. Well, those have been ordered. The reason why they haven't gone in is just simply a matter of priority. We've had a lot of other events, bus stop removals in Lithgow to facilitate awning replacements, preparations for Halloween, those sorts of things. So it is on the list to be completed, and it'll be done before Christmas.
Can I just reply to that? I appreciate the urgency, Mr Edgecombe, but children's safety to me is very urgent. And I know that you take it on board as well. I've had a lot of parents ask me about this. We have children from all over our district go to our schools, and I believe it's a matter of urgency and it needs to be fixed.
I would presume that Mr Edgecombe will make it as soon as possible. Councillor Coleman.
I was messaged earlier this morning and then spoken to as I was coming into council tonight about S-Bank Station, heritage listed S-Bank Station platforms. It's under now a proposal being considered by the state government in order to widen the platforms they're looking at demolishing. I mean, I understand that the consultation process is now closed with the state government, but firstly, were we aware of the issue? Were we aware of the consultation? That's one of my first questions. And my second question is it possible that we approach the local state member and see if that can, we can get more time in regards to that issue?
Mr Muir.
To answer the first question, at first blush, no, we weren't aware. We were made aware of it.
We were made aware?
We were made aware of it. We then contacted they change the name all the time, but the Heritage Office, and we've been provided links to the documentation which I've allocated to someone to have a look at. But yes, I think we might have to ask for some more time to be able to make head or tail of it. I understand there's demolition works proposed on the actual platform itself, so yes.
Yeah, and that's quite concerning considering it's heritage listed, my understanding. So I'm hoping that we can make some few phone calls to the state member and halt the action or at least get some more information on it. Mayor?
Look, if considering that it's imminent that they start demolishing, most probably it is a matter of urgency that we get some information back as quick as possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's in our local government area. It would have been nice if we were told about it, Mayor. I mean, it's really disappointing that the state government...
It surprises me, Councillor Coleman, that they have gone ahead with the demolition of a heritage building without consultation.
Yeah, that's what really concerns me.
Well, Mr Mayor, it's more than just being in our local government area. It's a vital component to the state mine museum. They're wanting to run, trains from S-Bank. Admittedly, not this particular station, but the whole precinct back around, stopping at the Blast Furnace Park and onto the State Mine Museum. This is sort of part of the our whole tourist strategy that people, the council, that Mr Muir and other people in Lithgow have been working for. I heard your comment earlier. It's just incredible that we weren't informed. I just think we really do need to do this because this is our future. This is part of what we're working on.
That's why I think it's imperative that we get the right information. Demolition may not be the word; it may be just widening. So I just want to make sure that we have got it right.
Yeah, look, it's too serious not to pursue this matter. Councillor Leslie's absolutely right, and you've been briefed just recently by the proponents of doing something with an historical rail link, an historical rail journey, and my understanding, I stand to be correct, my understanding that the S-Bank station was critical to that whole proposal that they were proposing. And as you know, as a group looking at training people as well in that proposal, it's extremely important, not just for a tourism point of view, but for a job creation point of view. And, we can't have it demolished, to be quite blunt. It just can't be demolished. It needs to be refurbished and brought back to the grandeur that it was many, many years ago, to be used by these people that are trying to create employment and tourism.
Well, I have noticed a lot of activity down around there just recently, so it needs to be moved on.
Mayor Thompson, the railway station is an item of state heritage. there'll be a lot of documentation going in. It'll go to the Heritage Council. But until we actually know, well, it's very hard to sit here and debate something that we don't know. Without knowing the details, we need to know it. So if Mr Muir can just come back with a report and advise us, that's all we need.
All due to respect, Mayor Thompson, more than a report is needed. We need phone calls to be made.
Yes.
We need to be calling the Honourable Paul Toole and asking him to intervene here and stop any demolition that may occur. This is more than just a report.
I think that was part of your
You're making phone calls and knocking on doors.
We certainly will be doing that, and it will start tomorrow. Okay.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I have a different one.
Councillor Leslie.
5 weeks ago, Mr Mayor, I moved an urgency motion that you accepted about that Lithgow Council contact Mr Ken Bird about how we can help with the wasp. Well, when I spoke to him this last Monday, after 4 weeks after the council meeting, he still had not heard from the councillors how council could assist him in his endeavours to rid us of this pest. I know that you've spoken to him since.
No, I spoke to him before that.
Thank you very much. Well, could I get a report? Could I get a report on exactly where we're up to and on this matter?
Mr Edgecombe.
I did speak with Ken this morning. We discussed a number of matters regarding how council can specifically assist Ken and his plight against the wasps of Lithgow. Plight of flight. One of which will be the more appropriate ongoing management of Farmers Creek in terms of weed control, and because he was able to show me a very interesting Google map where he has able to be actually mapping their nests. Others are promotion of his services, in particular his need for volunteers throughout the community. He does rely on free labour throughout the community and the goodwill of the Lithgow people in terms of setting traps and collecting them and those sorts of things. And the other avenue through which we could assist him is financial assistance, assisting him in providing him with the necessary documentation and needs by which he could apply for financial assistance through the council. He left the meeting rather happy. He's very passionate about the wasps and assisting Lithgow in trying to remove remove them from Lithgow.
Can I talk on that?
Councillor Goodsall.
I'm one of Ken's volunteers. Is there some way that we can promote his methodology and his traps and what put in the traps on council Facebook page or through the media?
So that was the crux of my discussion with him this morning. Was I'd already started drafting a specific page for our council website as well as a media release, both one requesting volunteers and giving his contact details directly to them, and two, it was he gave me a lot of information about his traps, how to buy the materials cheaply and how to set them up around your home. So that will be as part of that release. Yes.
I shall declare the meeting closed, and thanks very much to the public gallery. Thank you very much, councillors, and thank you very much, council staff.